We are now live streaming to YouTube. Well, hello everybody, and welcome to the first edition of Chef's Table. The Chef's Table is about talking and interviewing those that have been on an entrepreneurial journey, those that have been entrepreneurs for a few years, multiple years. What have they learned? What do they know? And how do they continue to provide value, training, and education? My special guest today, Dr. Bob Clarke, is an amazing friend and colleague. We have been working together in the online space for a long time. And I don't know how many years, but it's been a long time. We've put together a lot of incredible things. We've done things like the Chef's Table before, where we've interviewed top leaders. Bob's also really well renowned for kicking off motivational type events for, daily motivation, things that keep you moving and going in your business. And what I love about Dr. Bob Clarke is that he built his business and recently retired after building his business part-time. He has been consistently building as a part-time, showing other part-time business builders how to build in the nooks and crannies to build their business. So I'm super excited because Dr. Bob is just like one of my best friends, right? It's like every time we get together in an event, we're like goofballs. We just love to hang out. And I've always been curious, right? So part of this interview and this conversation around the Chef's Table is to kind of get to know what started them on their entrepreneurial journey, and then have them share some of their best tips. And then you're going to learn how to continue to follow these entrepreneurs, because trust me, their journeys are amazing. And I know that being an entrepreneur, we need to be surrounded by more entrepreneurs. We need to see what other entrepreneurs are doing, find those that inspire us, that enlift us. And I know Bob Clarke is definitely somebody you want to follow, because he is both inspirational, motivational, and what he does works. He's living proof of it, and so are his students. So with no further ado, Dr. Bob Clarke, how are you today?
I'm great. Boy, I'm glad that introduction was recorded, because I'm going to take that little snippet and put it somewhere. Thank you, Chef. I appreciate that. It's like flashback week, right? I mean, you and I getting together, doing something together again. It's so much fun. We worked on several projects before, and really blew stuff out of the water back in the day. We really had things going on. So it's great to come back and visit with you. And thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So my starter question for you is, what had you look at building a business, especially within the world of becoming an entrepreneur? So, because you were a full-time doctor.
Yep.
Right. So your specialty was in
vitro fertilization, infertility.
Okay. Yeah. So he's a doctor in making babies, just so you know. I'll keep it simple.
PhD. I'm not an MD, so I don't want anybody asking me for medical advice. So
okay, no medical advice. I'm just clarifying where his background from. That's all I'm doing there. You guys cannot ask any more questions around that. But what I want to know from this point on, because you did jump into the entrepreneurial world, what was it that sparked your interest or lit that fire to say, hey, I wanted to do this?
Yeah, it's a funny story how it actually got started. But before that happened, I've always wanted to have a business. Right? I've never gone that route. There's not an entrepreneur in my family. Everybody was the classic: go to school, get a job, have a career, and support your family. Nothing wrong with that. I did it for years. I loved it. But I always knew there would come a point in my life where my skill level will go down. My job entailed a lot of hand-eye coordination. And I knew as I got older, that would start to go down. And so I was cognizant of that. And also, as you know, Chef, the more successful you get in a career, the higher up they push you. And I was doing a lot more managerial stuff and less hands-on. And I started to see the handwriting on the wall of where it was going. So I had in my mind that I wanted to start a business, but what really kind of got it going is kind of funny, is I was in getting my hair cut one day at one of these shops. I just walked in, I didn't have an appointment, just walked in, had to wait, of course. So I'm sitting down in the waiting area, and right on this coffee table is a pamphlet for, some healthcare MLM or something like that, just some MLM thing. And I started looking at it and going, wow, this is kind of cool. This work from home. And that's what triggered it. That's what kind of got it going. And, of course I did everything wrong and I didn't do well in the beginning, just like everybody else. But that's what started it. That's kind of what got it going. And I was lucky enough to have a wife who was also interested in it and supporting it. So that's how it started.
So you started off by just picking up a pamphlet, sitting there waiting to get your hair cut.
So for all of you who think that stuff doesn't work, the old school stuff, it definitely does, because you never knew who's going to walk in and get their haircut.
I'm telling you, you know what's interesting? We talk about that, and you talk about like this kind of being a throwback. That's what's interesting is that a lot of things that we've used to do as entrepreneurs and over the time, a lot of that is foundational. A lot of that is still the basics of human essence and like connecting with people.
Yep.
So I mean, they're going to pick up a pamphlet, and you can't, it's going to hit with the right person.
Yep.
Because you just never know. Right.
Yep.
So you decided to do this, and you mentioned you're like, I didn't have a lot of success in that one, right? You did everything wrong. So what were some of your highlights from doing things wrong? Because I can point out quite a few. I did the whole crazy things, but I want to know what some of the crazy things you did or didn't do.
A lot of it was just looking back on it, so ridiculous.
Oh, good.
Buying genealogy leads, calling up people who had no interests, going that whole route that people sometimes do. Then I decided, well, I'm going to switch to affiliate marketing, and I'm going to make this thing work. And I got involved with some high ticket offers, which I had no idea how to sell, and proceeded to buy a ton of Google ads that sooner or later got shut down. But in the beginning, it was working back in the day. Did all that stuff, and the one thing I didn't do, that's probably more significant, is I didn't reach out for help. I didn't understand, even though I should have, as a professional, I should have understood this, but I didn't quite put it together that success leaves clues, right? And if I want to learn faster, if I want to save time, if I want to understand what it is that the so-called secrets, which there really are none, but the so-called secrets. So I hired a coach, but it took me a really long time to do that. And if looking back, if I could change anything, I would have done that even before I made a penny. I would have done that, because it would have been the best money I spent, rather than buying all these stupid ads or nowadays it would be kind of consistent with blowing a budget on Facebook or whatever. If I had known that, and I should have, because in my healthcare career, I was an apprentice. I learned that way. That's how I learned stuff. So it's no different in business, but it was more than what I didn't do than what I did.
Yeah, I would have to agree with you. I think that even for me, when I look at it, and I think we come from kind of like a similar, like a tech or similar aspect, because you talk about being an apprentice, right?
Yep.
And when I look back at like what it is to be a chef, a lot of what the original elements of becoming a chef was to be an apprentice. You weren't going to make a lot of money, but you were going to learn at the hands of a skilled and professional chef that had gotten there through the same type of work that you had done, right? And you talked about it's like success leaves clues. It does, and that's the only clues that are going to be out there are those that have gone before you.
I mean, think about how long it would have taken you to become as successful a chef as you were, learning on your own, right? I mean, it would have taken light years longer if you ever got there, right? So
yeah, it would have taken probably twice as long. Probably would have spent more money, and probably would have fumbled along just trying to figure it out in the process.
Right, and that's the other thing I would say too. If you're asking me what changed in me that had me going from no success to success, it was the understanding that I needed to have patience. I'm a really impatient person when it comes to getting results and seeing the fruits of my labor. I want to see it now, and that was a total shift for me. It was difficult, but I had to make that shift of, waiting, understanding that what I was doing was going to have results, but it was going to be later. And that was another shift that was big for me.
Yeah, I think you picked up on two key points right there. So one of the other phrases I've heard is this was said by Tim Irwin. I remember watching a presentation. He goes, find somebody that has what you want, do what they do, and you'll get what you want. Right. And I think that ties in beautifully to the success leads clues, because if you find somebody that you resonate with and that you can connect with, and you want what they have or the type of lifestyle they have, or you want to just learn how they did what they did, go and pay for that coaching. Go and invest in that, because it will help you move so much faster through the process.
Right. And the thing about that is people say, well, yeah, you could afford it. You had a good salary, you could afford to do that. And that's true. I wouldn't say it's not true, but
for me, I was like, yeah, I made a good salary and I spent it on the wrong.
Well, yes, right. Of course. In the end of the day, we all do that. But here's the thing about coaching too. When you're starting out, you don't have to go to the top level coach.
Yeah.
You can find someone who just did what you're trying to do. someone like one ladder rung above you, and someone who is willing to teach you how they did it.
Mm-hmm.
And it won't cost that much to do that. Believe me. Well, you know, I don't have to convince you. You know that.
Yeah.
But people who are watching who are maybe a little skeptical, it doesn't have to break the bank. You just have to find the right person.
Yeah, and you might go through, different people's experiences, and those that are just ahead of you are going to have a little perspective. And yeah, you're going to invest in somebody over time. As you grow, then your investment in coaching also grows.
Right.
I will tell you that right now. Is like as you build the business, as you start doing this, you're going to start reaching up and looking for those that can help you pull you up the ladder. But like you said, if you're just getting started, there's plenty of people that you can get coaching for a couple $100 and it's worth it.
Yep, absolutely.
Because you just never know. It's at least getting or planting the seed with you.
Yep.
Right. That's what I love about that. And then you mentioned also, getting into systems. You mentioned doing affiliate marketing. You mentioned so beyond the coaching, what else did you find was beneficial for you in your growth as an entrepreneur?
Well, I will say that, as a part-time entrepreneur, and I think that was important for me because I didn't have a lot of time.
Right.
And I couldn't reinvent the wheel, and it was very good for me to have certain things in place. So to join an affiliate program, for example, that had the offers in place, that had the proven pages that converted, that was important for me to plug into it because I didn't know how to do that stuff. I had no idea. It would take me years to figure it out. And so I always looked for, where can I find stuff that's already done that I know works and that I can use in my business as well. And so, that was another shift for me because I'm a guy who likes to do things alone and likes to figure it out. So asking for help, right? Looking for the right opportunities where you could leverage time. Leverage is huge. Whether you're full-time, part-time, doesn't matter. When you can leverage someone else's skills, right? Someone else's knowledge, platforms that exist that already work, all that stuff, and you can leverage that. It just makes your life so much easier.
I would agree. I think, I've definitely found some systems that over the years that I've found to be extremely valuable, just so that I learned, one of the things, I was definitely not a marketer when I first got started. Because when you talk about being an entrepreneur, there's I guess a couple different types of entrepreneurs in the world. And one of the skill sets I would say, and you may agree or disagree on this one, but would be like, you have to learn how to market.
Mm-hmm.
You can create the best product, but if you don't open your mouth or don't know how to get people to see that product, are you an entrepreneur?
You were a chef. I was a scientist, probably the least two marketer type people on the planet. So yeah, most people don't have that background. If you do, great, you're a leg up on other people, but most people don't have it. But it's okay because there's a lot of stuff out there to teach you. You just have to plug into something that you resonate with. And some of it's free, some of it's not. But you got to start somewhere. You got to start learning that skill of sales and marketing. Because if you don't learn it, like you said, whoever tells you that this stuff is not about selling is pulling your leg. And if anybody tells you that you just have to share and not worry about marketing, they're also pulling your leg. And I could use some stronger language, but this is a family-friendly show. I believe.
Hopefully it stays that way. It might. Who knows what will happen in the future? But yeah, you're right. You're not sharing, you're selling. If anyone tells you differently, they're blowing smoke up.
Yep, absolutely. So
because you got to learn this. So, one of the things that we've talked about in the past is definitely, there's some sort of systems, and we were just talking about this earlier, like what are habits and routines? What are things that we should be doing? And you being a part-time, business builder, entrepreneur, marketer, right? that's many hats in itself. Right. I know you have a coaching program that you do. Where you fit all this in when you had a full-time, gig, I have no idea. But you were able to put a lot of things in place. And one of the things we talked about was like the habits and routines that we created, right? Like what were the things that we know work? What are the things? And I'd even like to share some of the honesty that we shared earlier. Sometimes we fall out of those habits.
Mm-hmm.
We fall out of them. So over the years, what has been some of your best habits you've created? What were some of the results from that habit?
Oh, that's a good question. First of all, it's all habits. Everything is habits. Everything is routine. You think about routines of your own day, right? You wake up, first thing you do, usually most people do, is brush their teeth, right? Use the bathroom, whatever. That's a routine, right? Get up, have breakfast, take a shower. That's a routine. And so I tried to build those same kind of routines into my business where I knew I could fit it. And there were, I'll be honest, there were weeks where I'd have maybe 2 hours total in my week to work a business. And there were times where I have much more, but it all came down to building working on those habits, that mental toughness. If there was one skill, one muscle that I would urge people to grow, it's their mental toughness muscle. Because it's so much of it is that, I mean, not only trying to break old habits, which aren't serving you, but putting in new ones. There's a lot of mental toughness involved in doing that, especially if you're not all in to do it, right? But you know it's the best for you. So what are some of the habits that I incorporate in my business? I multitasked a lot. Okay. And I know that there are people out there who say you shouldn't multitask, and I do agree with that to some extent, but there are times when it makes so much sense, right? If I could see myself somehow doing two things at once and doing them well, I would do it. So for example, I had, as you can imagine, commuting into and out of New York City every day, I had a lot of time sitting in traffic, and I would plug into, tapes in the old days, cassettes, anything I could, I would plug into that while I was driving, because it was just automatic time, right? You're just driving. Mm-hmm. That's the kind of stuff I would do. And you kind of asserted to it before, the nooks and crannies, which I have to give credit where credit's due. That came from Diane Hochman, one of my mentors, is, what are the nooks and crannies of your day? And I soon realized that I was wasting 2-3 hours a day during the day where I could have been doing something for my business that I wasn't. And I got really good at that. I got really good at, skipping the whole lunch thing with the coworkers, and instead going by myself, having a bite to eat, and then maybe making some calls or working on a blog post or something that I could do for a half hour. But, most people get breaks during the day, and what do? Most people are either on their phone scrolling on Facebook or whatever, right? Maybe they're talking to their coworkers and whatever they're doing, smoking a cigarette. I don't know. Hopefully we're not doing that. But I was able to take those times and break into that, make a habit of, okay, what can I do in this 15 minutes that could put a dent in what I need to do for my business? And you're not going to get everything done. Like I literally would write an email a day, but I might write it in, 3 15-minute bursts of energy. Okay. Because I knew I couldn't finish the whole thing. So I'd get on there and I'd start it. And then all of a sudden, oh, somebody called me, I got to go, So I'd go back to work. But I would do that whenever I have a break. And yeah, it's not the best way to do it, but hey, you got to get it done. So that habit, those two habits, I would say probably were the best ones. And the third one would be, I read this book called The One Thing by Gary Keller. If you're part-time, even if you're not, I put it on your reading list. It's a good book called The One Thing. I think you've probably read that.
Oh yeah.
I've read it several times now. And that taught me that in everything you're trying to do, there's that one thing that if you do it consistently, to use Ray Higdon's term, will make success inevitable. So I know that if I want to accomplish something, there's one thing that I can do right now that will push me ahead farther than anything else I do. And usually, and you know this from experience, usually that one thing is not the most fun thing.
Yeah.
Right? That one thing might involve getting on the phone and calling somebody, and you don't want to do that, or following up, or whatever it is that may not be so fun for you, but it's the one thing.
Yeah.
So I got good at that. I got good at practicing, of making sure I get that done first in my day, because frankly, some days that was the only thing I got done.
Okay.
But I was always pushing forward inches at a time. I posted a picture on Facebook of an inchworm, and it reminded me of my business, because that's exactly how I built it in the beginning. One little inch at a time. So yeah, I had to be patient, had to learn the patience.
Yeah, because I'm thinking back, like you said, you weren't patient, and then you're talking about building a business 1 inch at a time. Because I know I've talked with a lot of different entrepreneurs over the years. They always say the phrase, well, I'm not where I want to be.
Yep.
Right. And I hear that a lot. What would you say to somebody if you met an entrepreneur or somebody that's coming in for the first time saying, I'm just not where I want to be. Like, I feel like I'm way back over here. I'm far behind. Everybody I'm looking at is so far ahead of me. I'm not where I want to be. What would be something that you would say to them?
I would say to them is are your habits reflective of where you want to be? Right? And think about that. And we talked about, we made a joke about this, do you have 6-figure goals for the new year, but 2-figure habits? Right? So when someone says to me, I want to be up here, I want to be 10K a month, I want to be this level in my MLM, whatever it is, I'll say, well, should you be? Based on what you're doing in your daily habits, do you deserve that? And when you see, most people will look at the goal and they won't look at the habits. When you make them look at the habits, then they're like, no.
Oh, confrontation. I had to look at and be responsible for my own success.
Right. That's why when we first talked about what do you want to talk about today, I thought, okay, New Year's resolutions. I stopped making New Year's resolutions, not because, they're BS and people don't follow them, but my big word for this year is habits and routines. Because if you take care of the habits, the goal takes care of itself.
Right. That's true.
So the thing, if someone says to me, I'm not where I want to be, I'm like, check your habits. What are you doing that will help you get there? And what are you doing that are stopping you from getting there? Someone says to me, I want to lose 50 pounds. I was like, well, do your habits support that? And they're like, well, I do eat a bag of chips a day. And, I go to the gym whenever I can, but I really don't like it. And, so how are you going to do it? That's a great goal. I think it's a fantastic goal, but you got to put those habits in place that are going to support that. Yeah. And that's where I see most people drop off, especially these New Year's resolutions, you get all excited about it. Mark Hoverson, I was just listening to this thing by Mark Hoverson. You're going to love this. Sorry, I don't want to go off base here, but.
No, keep going. This is good stuff.
Mark Hoverson made this statement, and I thought it was so perfect. He said, the universe does not respond well to burst energy.
Okay.
Right? In other words, the person who gets all excited after an event, gets all gung-ho, goes out a couple of days, does a killer DMO and, prospects 30 people and follows up with 10 and does a piece of content and personal development, the whole thing, right? Yeah. If you did that, you get where you want to go if you did that regularly. But after a couple of days, they don't see results, so they kind of back away from it. That's burst energy. The universe doesn't respond to burst energy really well in any aspect. Exercise, weight loss, financial, doesn't respond to burst energy. The universe responds to consistent energy, consistent efforts, consistent actions. And that's really, we've all been told that, right? It's consistency. But when you look at it from the bigger level, it's everything, right? And the thing about consistent action is if you take a snapshot of it on day 1, you're not going to see results. On day 5, you're not going to see results. You may not see results until day 50 or 60 or 90, but you got to do it with the belief that what you're doing will get it. And so, when someone comes to me and says, I'm not having success, I don't understand it, I always push them back and say, what are your habits? What are your actions? And are you doing the good actions consistently enough to get those results? And when you corner people, put them in a corner like that and make them look at it, first of all, they don't like it.
No.
They don't like it because they don't want to look at that.
Right.
And second of all, it causes them to admit that, this is on me. It's not the company. It's not the comp plan. It's not my upline who isn't helping me. It's not my coach who isn't telling me exactly what to do. It's on me because I'm not doing the right things. Or I haven't done them long enough. Yeah, there's a couple things. So sorry, I didn't mean to go off on a tangent.
No, because you talked about a key point, because it is about habits, it is about routines, it is about almost doing the mundane. And we were kind of joking about this before we jumped on here. It's like, the mundane is mundane. Like, you're just like, there's nothing exciting about what you do. It's just doing it. But the success is found inside of that.
Yeah, always.
The success, I mean, even I look at, talking with you about, being in a kitchen, the success of a plate that goes out every single time is the fact that it's made the same way.
Right.
365 days a year. Same things getting cut the same way, getting cooked the same way. Like, well, it might be mundane to us. And I think this is where that shift happens, where it's mundane to us, it's new to somebody else.
Ooh, that's good. That's good. Yeah.
Right. Because I was just thinking about that, because they may, like, if you're talking about a restaurant, well, I may have made that dish 100 times. The person that's coming to the restaurant may be the first time they've ever been there.
Right.
So it's all new to them. They don't have any experience of what you consider the mundane behind the scenes.
Right. Right. And you can take that same example and transfer it to business. And, I know people who do Facebook Lives regularly, and sometimes their complaint is nobody's watching, or very few people are watching, or I've taught this before, and it's old stuff. But like you said, you don't know how new it is for somebody else. That one person who may be watching for the first time and is like, wow, that's an awesome tip. And you're like, really?
Yeah, we've got Jeff watching us on YouTube, and he's like, he's like, I have the same thing. I'm not responsibility for the commitments I'm making. Right.
Well, that's everybody, Jeff. That's,
I
don't know. I know very few people in business or in life whose habits are totally consistent with their goals.
Yeah.
But the closer you can make it, the more chance you have of success.
Yeah. So when you talk about like stepping into 2020, I mean, I honestly think this is probably one of the most talked about years in a very long time, besides maybe rolling into, the year 2000, right? Coming in from 1999 into 2000, when we thought the world was going to end and things were going to crash. And I might be dating myself around that information, but hey, whatever. But we're rolling into, and I hear everyone talk about it, it's like we're heading into the year 2020, the year of vision. It's a new decade. Like there just seems to be like this, I'm going to play into your world of cosmic energy that just seems to be really just moving people. And maybe it's just the group of people I'm seeing, but there's a lot of that going on. So what does 2020 look like for you?
Yeah, well, the thing about that, everybody, a new year always brings renewal, right? And good choices. A new decade is like, oh, this is going to be my decade. So as you know, and other people may know, my world changed drastically last year. I decided to give up my 6-figure job and my career that I've been in for 30 years and focus on, people. For lack of anything else, I called it retirement, but it really wasn't retirement. It was transition into a full-time business. So what my world looks like in 2020 is very different from what it looked like in 2019.
Yeah.
And we were just talking about this before. What I've decided to do, it's very easy. It's like a kid in the candy shop, right? Oh, I have all these hours in a day. Oh, I can do this and this and this and this, and try to start a zillion things. But I really want to start one thing, or I want to continue to do one or two things really well. We talked about this before we even started. Good friend of mine, Vanessa Duplessis, one of my first coaches, said, you already know what to do. It's in the fundamentals. Now you just got to do it. So my goal for this year, if you want to call it a goal, is to go back to the fundamentals and make sure that I'm sticking to those and doing one or two things really, really well, and not fall prey to I've got 8 hours in a day now. Ooh, and I'll tell you something that I've found. I've been not working now for 2 months, and it's a heck of a lot harder to manage your time when you have a lot of it. I'm telling you.
Isn't that crazy?
Yes.
Didn't anticipate it. I want to quit my job, and when I do that, I'll just have all the time I need to really build this business. But the moment you get a full day,
no, I found it much, much easier to juggle a career, a family, and business than I do taking the job out of the equation. Now I have all this time. It's tough. So to answer your question, I don't know exactly what 2020 is going to bring, but I know that I'm going to focus more on fundamentals, on those fundamental habits that work, and that I know that work, and just make it happen.
So what were some of your fundamental habits? And I know we talked about it. We can kind of have a conversation around just some fundamentals. So when you're talking about, what do those fundamental habits look like? Like, what would be one of your fundamental habits?
We talked about this before, reading.
Mm.
It seems like a very blah fundamental habit to have, but there's so much knowledge in books, and there's so much knowledge, especially reading books from people who are successful or have been successful, right? And looking for the clues.
Yeah.
Maybe there's that one thing on page 191, paragraph 3, that's going to click in you and make a difference. For busyness sake, for whatever reason, I stopped reading as much as I used to read. So that's one of the habits that I'm going to get back into. In a business sense, it's taking the time to reach out to people. And I know that sounds, very ordinary and blah, but, in the excitement of creating courses and coaching and this and that, I put on the back burner let's go talk to some people and find out how I can help, or if I can help, and let's see what they're doing. That's going to be one of my fundamentals, going back to that.
Yeah. I'm definitely right there with you. I think, no matter what we're doing as we're building businesses, we all deal with people. I remember when I first got online, I thought it was fantastic because I thought, this was my thinking way back when, about a decade ago, when I first got started online, I could just put up a post. People were going to see it and they were going to know exactly what to do.
Mm-hmm.
Right? They were going to, like you at the hair, getting your haircut, they were just going to pick up this brochure and they were just going to magically join me. Right.
Right.
And social media has evolved over this last decade. So much so. I mean, you and I, when we first got started, there wasn't nearly as much conversation around building a business, entrepreneurship, the ability to really start an online business with a few clicks of a button. I mean, that's different, right?
Yep.
But I remember interviewing Diane Hockman, and when I was interviewing her and I asked her, I said, what's the first thing you would ever do getting online? She goes, honestly, and I said, you got 20 minutes to tell us your best secrets, right? Like, I want to know which one it is. And it was definitely the first thing she said is you've got to build a relationship with people. The internet doesn't replace building relationships. People still use it to stay connected. It's now more of a connection than a disconnection. So you've got to be your truest of your true self out there, right? And you've got to connect people. You got to find out what they're up to. I mean, this last few months has been one of the most exciting times for me in my business, because I'm actually having conversations with people, finding out what they're dealing with, what they're struggling with, what they're up to in their business, what has them stuck, whatever. For the first time, I'm excited about being an entrepreneur again, right? So I know the relationships are really important. The second thing she told me is that you've got to build a list. Mm-hmm. No matter what, you've got to find a way to connect with people. And social media, if you haven't been paying attention, the time that your post is up on social media is getting smaller and smaller. Mm-hmm. Yep. I mean, literally, it used to be days up there. Now it's, hours, and pretty soon it's going to be minutes. It's just,
unless you pay for it.
Unless you pay for it, right? Yeah. And so you've got to look at, like, what relationships are you building with people?
Yeah. Well, there are two ways to do it, right? You can do it one-on-one, which now that I have more time, I'll be doing more of that. It's reaching out, what's going on in your life, what's happening. And the key to that is do it without the
intent
of selling something, So you just go and truly find out how people are. Mm-hmm. That's one of it. So there's one by one to do it that way, but there's way worse doing it. We're doing it now. We're broadcasting live to Jeff and maybe somebody else who's watching, who knows, but the recording will be there. Right? People will be able to watch it on your YouTube channel. And this conversation might strike a chord with somebody. And they might reach out to you or me and say, hey, what else you got? Or just have a conversation with them. So there's a way to draw people to you, which is how I like to do it and how Diane does it too. But it doesn't eliminate the people factor. It's still, to me, online just is a way for me to get to talk to more people.
Yeah.
It's not, and it used to be same as you. Let me put something up so somebody can click a button and buy something from me. And I can sit behind my computer and never talk to them.
Yeah.
Right. That's, and in some businesses they can do that. There's some businesses where that does happen, but in our world, it doesn't happen that way. So to me, online is just a way to get to meet more people.
Yeah.
That
And
makes
I
sense.
think you said something really interesting too, is about collaboration. And you and I were talking about this a little bit earlier. And it's something I mean, not everyone does it, but I find that when I start collaborating with people, I'm way more active inside of the conversation. I'm way more I'm out there in communication. I'm telling people I'm collaborating with people. I'm excited to be on projects. I like to see things come to fruition, like the collaboration element, because I know that what's up in here, and I promise you guys, sometimes I'm my own worst critic. I'm my own worst enemy. I can take myself out faster than anyone can, right? I can be like, oh my gosh, I don't know how to do this. And I can self-sabotage without any help from anybody, right? So I also find that when I'm in collaboration with people that I learn new things, right? I get to experience or look at something from somebody else's perspective. And I think that's one of the beauties about building a business and being an entrepreneur, is that we get to meet so many different people and get different perspectives.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've used collaboration in that way. I've also used collaboration in an accountability way to show up because somebody else is counting on me to show up. I've also used collaboration as a way to take the fear out of it, or take more of the fear out of it. Because you're doing it, let's face it, if you're doing something live by yourself, there's a certain level of fear if you're just starting, especially, right?
Right.
People get scared of camera. You think they're not going to know what to say. But if you got somebody else with you who can pick up the slack when you get tongue-tied, or whatever happens, and you've got to collect yourself so this other person starts talking, that's less scary. So there's lots of advantages of it, and like you said, not the least of which is to kind of come up with new ideas that you'd never thought of. That's a great way to do that, is collaboration. I learn stuff from you every day when I talk to you, and we just even if it's like an unofficial collaboration, it's exchanging ideas, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, and that's one of those things we were talking about, where I've done it in the past, I've gone away from it, and got to go back to it.
Yeah, well, like this was something I did in the past. I interviewed a lot of great. I mean, I have 22-minute, conversations with Diana Hockman, Ray Higdon, Ben Settle. I've got, documentations of all these incredible interviews spread out all over the internet, right? And I was like, but I enjoyed that. Like, I loved learning from people, having the ability to ask them and find out what it was like and what it's like to build a business, and some of their biggest tips, and what are some things that they can offer that can help people.
Yep. Yeah. And
right?
It's an awesome way to do it. And it also builds you up as a person who has the clout to talk to those kind of people. It's not everybody can do that. So yeah.
Well, can I tell you a little secret?
Sure.
So what I discovered around interviewing people is about 98% of the time, everyone's a yes. The crazy thing is, people, no matter how high up they are, they do like to be interviewed.
Really? I wouldn't have thought it was that high.
My success rate on asking, say, hey, can I interview you, even for the chef's table? I mean, I'm already booked out through March. I've only got 52 slots according to the new year, right?
Yep.
And, but it's everybody I meet when I say, hey, I want to interview you on your journey and see what it's been like, and what, give you exposure and help you build your business and recommend you. Do you want that? And, we talked about this. Exposure agents are huge elements of any business, right? Those that, that's why so many people want to get on television. They want to be heard on the radio. It's because it's a way to get their message out to more people faster than they could probably do on their own.
Sure. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And, you may get the occasional no from maybe somebody's either too busy, or it just doesn't fit, or sometimes they're just too high up on the chain to get them. But you might get the person right underneath them.
Yeah.
Talk about all the stuff that's going on. So yeah. And what's the old adage? If you don't ask, it's always a no.
Yeah. I had a fear of asking some of these people. Trust me. And my mindset around asking people that I knew were, like Norbert, right? Like when he asked me to be on his podcast, I was like, oh my God, I'm on Norbert's podcast, right?
Let me get my hair cut.
All this crazy stuff. And then, when I look at, interviewing like Ray Higdon, I mean, he's a yes all the time. Tyson's Honors, a yes all the time. Diane Hockman, the people that I would think that are out of reach, and at least in our sphere of influence right now, there potentially everybody could be a no.
Sure.
Right. But the thing is that we like to find out about people, right? If your schedule's open for it, and that's usually what it is, it's they may not have the time right now. Well, let's work on something that you can do. Let's get it on your calendar so you book it. Because most of the time I found those that are successful are using their calendar. They're scheduling their day, right? So they know, they're not going to be able to maybe do something right this minute, or they might find, that they have the nooks and crannies, but their calendar is what they live by. It has their morning routine in it. It has when they take lunch in it. It has when their appointments are. And they know that if you book that time with them, they've already got it set aside. They're not going to put something on top of it. They're not going to have a conflict with it unless something happens, emergency wise in the family. They know that's on their calendar.
Yep.
So one thing I've learned over the years, and especially through a lot of self-development training, is that my calendar is my promise to myself of what I'm going to accomplish today. So you talk about, what does your business look like now that you're retired? I found honestly that if I have my calendar, I at least know how my day is going to go.
Right. That's very true. Because when I was working, my calendar was very rigid.
Mm-hmm.
I had this blocked out, that blocked out. So my time that I had free was, maybe here, very small amounts. Yeah. And when I retired or transitioned, whatever you want to say, that sounds like I'm dying. But when I retired, my calendar opened up, as you can imagine. Yeah. And I failed in the beginning to structure it. And now I'm back to it, and it's working out well. So my wife now knows, hey, my business hours are 10 to 12 and like 4 to 6. Yeah. And maybe something at night if I want to do it. So she knows now if she wants me to do something with her, 1 o'clock's a good time.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of stuff you have to put in place, or else, it just, everything breaks out, and it's just, what happens is the business becomes lower and lower in your priority list. And that's not a good thing.
Yeah, I got laughed at. I've had people come over to my house and they're like, how many calendars do you have? Right. And for me, I'm a visual. So I need to kind of see my year. So I bought one of those really large 12-month calendars. And the reason for that is I want to actually plan my vacations. One of the first things I remember talking about is like, plan the things that you want to do first.
Yeah.
Right. And then build your business around it.
Yeah.
Because if you don't take time out for yourself as an entrepreneur, you're going to burn out fairly quickly, and you're going to look at every life event happening as just a step backwards. Yeah. Right. So that becomes part of the journey on this one. So I have a large calendar. I have a desk calendar. I actually even have a hanging calendar, and then I use my digital calendar. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And what I do with my desk calendar is I use that to highlight moments in my life. So I typically write on my desk calendar things that are made a big impact today. Like, oh, I had a great interview today. Because what I like to do with my desk calendar is I like to use that as my recap for the year.
Nice. That's nice. Yeah.
Right. So I use my desk calendar basically to like capture moments like, when did I start something? When did I do something? When did this launch? And then I have something to look back on, because you and I both know, Bob, we don't always know all the good things we've done throughout the year. We just keep looking at what we haven't accomplished yet.
Go. Absolutely. Yep. Yep. Yeah. I don't even know how to comment on that, because we're all wired. Most of us are wired that way. Mm-hmm. That's why I do it myself. I do it with my coaching clients. What are your wins for the week? And you can even do it for the day. What are your wins for the day? But you need to clap yourself on the back once in a while. Slap yourself on the back, and even for the small things. Got my first lead. I talked to this person who I was dreading to talk to. Okay, it didn't go well. Clap yourself on the back because you did it.
Yeah.
So you got to celebrate those wins, and that's a great system. I might adopt that one, because I don't really keep track of things that way.
And I think it's mundane. It's like, I'll put down on here. Well, it's actually, this is a big one, but it's like, okay, I started my chef's table today, right? So now I have a document of the day and time. And it's interesting because then I have like the year to celebrate. It's like, oh my God, it's my 1 year anniversary. It's because sometimes we forget the things that we've done, right? Like I have on here, I started my first Pinterest workshop. I became, a founder for a company that I wanted to join, right? And I just kind of note little things that, I kind of like, it's okay, it's not great, but I don't know the significance that little snowball is going to have down the line.
Yeah.
right? So if I'm traveling or anything else, and I want to kind of get a sense of what I'm up to in my life. And if there's something going on each day and I note something good about my day on each day, then I have a sense of what I'm doing each day because I'm always looking for the good. If I focus on what I didn't do for the day, it compounds because
That
then
list is long.
then it just keeps growing and growing, right? So I start looking at, okay, what did I do today? What got accomplished?
Yeah.
What got set up? And then do I need to make a note to follow up with this 6 months from now?
Yeah. And one other thing that I add to my calendar now that I never did before, I said never did, but I used to not do it as much, is I schedule in each week thinking time. Because I'm one that I'm all action. Everything's action. Go, go, go. Do stuff. Right. And it's great. Taking action is where it's at. Right. But at some point you have to sit, and mine is Sunday nights. You have to sit and not just plan out your week, but take some time to think. Right. Where is this going? What am I doing stuff that's right? Where else could I be better at it? What are my big goals?
Yeah.
Like, how am I doing with this? Am I, I want to learn Spanish this year. Have I even started? No. It's December, what is it, 30th? And I haven't started it for my yearly yet. That was one of my resolutions last year. I want to learn Spanish. Well, no.
Yeah.
But right, if I had thought about it during the year more, hey, that's right, I want to do that. Let's get on it. Yeah. So thinking time is a big thing for me.
I like that. I might have to incorporate that into mine. I don't have that one. I know a big one for me is journaling. Like making sure I journal. And I've been talking with, and I got out of that habit too. I used to journal every single night and just kind of recap how the day went, or I journal in the morning to recap about how my day is going to go.
Yep.
So we talk about this. Like I'm telling you guys, no matter how big you get, there's some points where you're full out of some habits and you'll look at, it's like, well, that, where's my business? Where am I in my business? And like you said, really early on, it's reflective of your habits.
And if you're watching this and you're in that boat where, hey, I used to do better than I am now. I used to have more success. I'm not having as much success. This is weird. I should be having more success. Just think back to it. What was I doing back then? Right? What were my habits or what were my actions that I was doing that maybe I stopped doing because I thought I should move on from that and do something bigger? And that's, we were just talking about that because so many times it's the little things that you do. It's not the grandiose jumps that you make, the big leaps, but it's the small things. The big leaps are important, leaps of faith, but most success is in the small stuff. Like you said, the mundane, right? And so if you did have success, maybe you hit a rank level and now you're back to where you started and you're not there anymore, or whatever. Maybe you were having a lot of success selling a product and now you're not. What were you doing before? And go back to that time and as best you can, reflect on, why did I stop doing that?
Yeah, I think that's, you and I are both kind of at that where we look at what we've done and I think that's, even for me, the rebirth of the Chef's Table is because I know this is something that, you talk about showing up. Well, when you start scheduling people that you're going to be interviewing, you have a sense of doing things to benefit them.
Yep.
Right. So you're going to create conversations. You're going to stay in action. You're going to engage with your audience. You're going to send emails and such so that you continue moving it forward.
Absolutely. And it's the whole accountability thing too, right? You're accountable to everybody you've scheduled to interview.
Oh yeah. I'm accountable for the promise I made that, this is going to be a value to them to be on here.
Right. So all your fans are going to show up at noon on Mondays. And if you're not there, they're going to want to know why.
Yeah. What happened to you? Right. And so, and it's, that conversation, I think, is just one of the beautiful things around this. And, we are heading into 2020. We're heading into New Year. But the thing is that every day is a new year.
Yep.
Every moment is an opportunity to create our business. And I really just can't thank you enough for being on the Chef's Table with me today. Just catching back up with you again, talking about being an entrepreneur. I love this conversation.
Yeah, it's talking about stuff that matters, right? Even though it's stuff that usually people gloss over. That's what I love about conversations with you, because we always get here, right? We always end up getting down to the nitty gritty of what people really need to hear, not what people are, the grandiose things that people tell. Dude, that'd be a great still shot, right?
Yeah.
but getting down to the nitty gritty, and that's what I feel like we've done today. So I love this conversation too.
Yeah, we've hit some highlights and some points. We talked about the calendar. We've talked about creating your habits. We've talked about what success really does look like. We've talked about, the journey of being an entrepreneur. And I think you kind of, hit upon it. We didn't get the whole story, but I got an essence of like what it had been like for you to get started in this. And I can only imagine, the twists, the turns, the road bumps, the cliffs that suddenly popped up and you're like, oh my gosh, right?
Yeah. Well, one of the ones I didn't tell you, I'm going to tell you real quick, is just a side story. It's no, I don't think many people know this, but two things happened that were major roadblocks for me, and they were mostly mental, right? But so when I first got started, I had a blog, right? And I still have a blog, but I was really blogging a lot, and this was my main hub. Another thing I should get back to, right? But at one point, my director, right, the person above me, called me into her office, and she pulled up my blog, which I didn't make a big deal about it. I didn't really tell anybody at work what I was doing. I didn't want to mix those two worlds, for various reasons, but I didn't want to. And she pulls up this thing and she's like, "What is this? What are you doing? This is so below you." Right. And so, yeah, right. Big statement, big negativity, but the self-doubt. It's like, oh, maybe I'm doing something that's really stupid. Maybe this is dumb, right? That set me back a while. And the other one that set me back was, if I should say this, but I'll say it anyway. I was going through a divorce, and my ex-wife actually photocopied every page of my blog and submitted it as court evidence of all the money I was making. So that sent me back light years.
I don't want to put anything on the internet anymore.
Well, but that's kind of stuff, but that's extreme, right? But it's that kind of stuff. It's what people say about you, it's what happens to you, some of the things that people do to you.
Yeah.
Right. That's the stuff you talk about, mental toughness. You got to get through that stuff. And I'll first admit that sent me back quite a while, both of those, but it's part of your journey. You get past it. And then if someone else has it happen to them, you can give them a little nod, say, "Hey, it happened to me too. It's okay. You'll get past it."
Yeah. Yeah, there's a great question coming at this that I think is conducive to this conversation, right? So we all hit mental roadblocks. We do hit everything else. So what's your number one thought or tip for somebody who works full time and wants to take on a part-time side business or side hustle?
Number one tip would be believe it's possible. And I know that sounds kind of like blah to say that, but for a long time, I didn't truly believe that because I was part-time, I had what it took to succeed, right? And I remember using the phrase often, "I'm only part-time. What do you expect?" Right? As an excuse for not getting results. I'm only part-time. I remember very vividly, I was sitting at one of my first company events, the first company I joined, and I went to an event, and it was all very exciting, right? But I'd been in it for a while, over a year, and I still hadn't made maybe a dime. I'm not sure if I made any money at all, but I was, still, let's go. And I went to this event, and I was sitting with some people, and, one by one, they started getting called up on stage for, hitting a level or making a rank, whatever it was, getting their award. And I remember turning to my wife and I said, "What did they expect? We're only part-time." Right. And it was like, not then, but soon after, someone else called me on that and said, "If you continue with that thought process, you're never going to succeed." So that's why I say, believe it, because your part-time, full-time status has nothing to do with the actions you can take to succeed.
You just got chills when you said that.
Yeah. And it took me a long time I was like you, I was my own worst enemy, right? I'm only part-time, And you tell yourself that long enough and you'll never succeed.
Because you can create little actions, anything, if you believe in this. I think Ray Higdon said it best, and I think we've heard it from other people, but it's your vision of what you see yourself as that pulls you forward.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
I don't know the saying, your vision pulls you and your pain pushes you until your vision pulls you, or something like that.
Yeah. Your pain pushes you until your vision pulls you.
Right. And that's part, and I don't want to keep going on this because I know we've been a while, but that's a big part of people who have a job and let me talk to people for a minute who are doing this, who have a job, they're drawing a paycheck, right? And they're comfortable, right? It is probably one of the worst places you can be as a part-time entrepreneur, is being comfortable with that paycheck coming in every 2 weeks that pays the bills. A little extra left over, so you have some fun, maybe put some into your marketing. Great. But if you notice, a lot of these success stories that happen out there are people whose back were against the wall. Financially, every part of their life, they had to succeed. And that's missing in a lot of people who want a business like I did and like other people do, but they have a job and it pays them well and they're comfortable. So you don't have to do it today, right? That is a huge thing that you need to get through if you're part-time in your business and you have a job and you're comfortable, is that you've got to somehow figure out ways to build that urgency into your life. And for me, it was very simple. I just told my wife what I was going to do. And if I didn't do it, she would tell me that, you're not holding up your, so find somebody like that in your life. Right.
Yeah.
Anyway, I didn't want to go off, but I think a conversation about part-time has to involve that, because too many people are comfortable in their life.
Yeah.
Their back isn't against the wall. And if you don't start creating some urgency and getting things done and making movements in your business, you're going to be part-time forever.
No, I agree. No, because it's such a key thing, right? So yeah, I'll even say for me, I could have been very comfortable just staying a chef. It could have been inevitable. I could have done it for years, and I was good at it and everything else. And I think my pain point for me that I had to self-create was, what did my future look like?
Right.
Right. And I had to sit there, like you said, you think about it. It's like, well, what does this look like in 20 years?
Right.
So it really depends what you're looking for.
I'm not telling people to go off and quit your job.
No, don't do that. Please don't.
I'm not telling people to do that. Don't misunderstand me, anybody who's listening to this. That's not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is figure out ways around it to artificially create those deadlines, those urgencies. I always tell people, be your worst boss when it comes to your business. People say build your business build your business not like a hobby, but like a business, right? I tell them, build your business like it was your job. Yeah. If you don't show up, you get fired, So
there you go. So Dr. Bob, how can people follow you? Where is a good place to connect with you?
Well, I just happen to have created a brand new training for people. It's free if they want to get it. It's over on my blog, bobandrosemary.com/focus. It's all about putting focus in the right places in your business so that you can get success faster rather than slower. Especially when you don't have a lot of time. So bobandrosemary.com/focus. You put your email in and I'll send you that training. That's the best way to continue this conversation, I think.
Okay, perfect. So we've got a place to come follow you. Is there any other place on social media that we can follow you, or should we just go to the blog and from there we can kind of pick where we want to follow you best?
The other place I spend most of my time is Facebook.
Okay.
People can find me over there. And
right. We can just use your blog to kind of find that link and head over to your...
The blog is the main hub, basically.
Okay. Perfect. Well, I really do appreciate your time. I know that you are building your business, and I just graciously that having you here, kicking off the Chef's Table, and I just love that we get to sit around and have these conversations that really do make a difference for entrepreneurs. And I truly believe, Dr. Bob, that we're teaching and training the next generation.
I believe it too, and I am so honored to be the first guest on your new show. And I can always say that now, that I was the first guest on the Chef's Table. So feather in my cap.
You're the first person I thought of. Like, I couldn't imagine doing Chef's Table without you. Like, it's just because of our backgrounds. Like, I'm like, that's the first person, is like, it's Dr. Bob. Like, we're going to have Chef's Table. Like, of course he's going to be the first guest.
And the funny thing is, you never know where our conversations are going to go. So.
That's what I love about us.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for your time. I appreciate you so much. Again, follow you guys. Is that bobandrosemary.com?
Yes.
bobandrosemary.com/focus. I'll make sure that link is down below here in the YouTube channel. And for those that are watching via podcast, it'll be in the description also. That'll be coming soon. So it's not exactly out right now, but I want to make sure I leave that in there for you guys. So please connect with Dr. Bob. He is amazing. He is just brilliant. And I know that if you're somebody that's building your business part-time, there's no better coach for you to work with than him. 100% of that.
Appreciate that very
So
much.
follow him, learn from him, and just grow, because that's the best thing we can do.
Appreciate you, Chef. Thanks so much for the kind
Thank
words.
you.
Appreciate you.
My pleasure. All right. And with that, everybody, enjoy your day.